Good morning, Yasha Allah, to the 12 tribes in diaspora. And diaspora means throughout the length and breadth of the whole earth, according to Luke chapter 21. I think that's what it is. And ye shall be I'll paraphrase, you shall become scattered to the ends of the earth. All right, Yasha Allah, we give praise to Abba, Yahweh, our Father, the Father of our Mashiach, the hidden Malak. Oh, Abba, no, bless you, praise you. In the mighty Rawak, the seal of Abba Yah's authority. And we come to present to you, actually, to share with you, Yasha Allah, again, all in the diaspora, in all the diaspora, over the length and breadth of the earth, north to south, west to east. We ask, we command the tribes to come forth from the lands of the north to Abba's sanctuary, to come and shut thy doors and enter in to your place prepared for you. All right, Yasha Allah, the subject today is we have no king but Caesar. I wish you could say it with me so that you can feel the movement of the spiritual essence behind the words. We have no king but Caesar. And this has been and is the crux upon which our enslavement hangs. That our forefathers said at the time leading up to the crucifixion, they said it with their own mouths. We, Yasha Allah, have no king, no Malak, but Caesar. So this is where our slavery, our enslavement has been anchored down. And this has been the signature of pride for Edom. Because Caesar is an Edomite. And we hailed and acclaimed him at the time that we were heatedly requesting, asking for, and seeking to achieve the crucifixion of Mashiach, the Father's beloved, offered for the sins of the world. I hope you get it, Yasha Allah, that the declaration, we have no king but Caesar, is the place where our enslavement in totality, The whole process of our enslavement was anchored there, here in this verse, because our forefathers spoke it into existence. And now we're getting the experience. I need you, Yasha Allah. In fact, the Spirit of the Most High needs you to come to your senses and realize that it was our fathers that clamored for the privilege. Privilege is a it becomes a curious word, but this is how I have to put it. Our forefathers yearned for the privilege to have Caesar as their malak, as their king. And they proclaimed it in their own words in the face of the crucifixion of Mashiach, the Father's beloved, the Father's well-beloved, our Mashiach. They proclaimed, we have no king but Caesar. And today we, their children, the children of the house of Yahweh, along with Ephraim, we are all together on the account of the declaration of the house of Yahweh, the house of Judah, that proclaimed in that moment of time leading up to the experience of Calvary for our Mashiach. Our forefathers made it a clear and pointed declaration that thankfully is recorded in the scriptures. Luke, pardon me, Yochanan 19, verse 15. Shall I read it for you? All right, let me read it for emphasis. But they shouted, away, away, impale him. That means crucify him. Pilate said to him, or to them rather, Pilate said to them, shall I impale your sovereign? And get the next part of the verse, because this is something we're going to be discussing in depth right after this. The chief priests answered, we have no sovereign except Caesar. I want to read it again for emphasis. Wish you could read it with me. But they shouted. I want to backtrack a little, please, and read the verse above so that our statement is absolutely clear. The verse above, verse 14 says, and it was the preparation day of the Passover week. And about the 6th hour. And he said to the Yahudim, see your sovereign. This is obviously Pilate, the Edomite governor. I think they call him proconsul. Anyway, Pilate himself, that your history has written of in bold language. Pilate says, behold your king, your malak. See your sovereign. And now the main verse, and they shouted, "Away, away, impale him, crucify him," said they. And Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your sovereign?" The chief priests, stick a marker there. The chief priests answered, "We have no sovereign except Caesar." That is the signature of the transatlantic slave trade. I want you to mark it down, because we're going to go in now in the leading of the Rawak. We're going in to show you that you, our forefathers, are responsible for sending us forth into enslavement, death, and destruction. All right. It is necessary then for us to understand the matter that is proposed to you, to us, Yasha Allah, at this moment, if we are going to be, or as we are making the transition towards the cancellation of the curses upon the house of Yahweh. And of course, it adds in with the house of Yahweh, the northern tribes. Canceling the curses, that would be a subtitle for this word, for this exercise. So, we look at the matter of what we have recently been learning about Levi and the Haitian Revolution for Haiti's independence. And I don't think you have forgotten yet that we are now, only now, in a matter of probably weeks, coming out of the bottom end of 400 years of enslavement. We haven't gone anywhere yet, Yasha Allah, only now coming out of it. You got to get this. This is serious. Focus yourself now, Yasha Allah, and get your sons, get our sons and daughters to focus on the matter at hand. And this moment of decision is staring us right in the face. We have come through the season, the period of the feast of Yom Kippur 2020. And here we have been led by the Father's Rawak. Bless you, Abanawa and Mashiach. We have been led to discover the real methodology of transacting or of handling, doing, expressing the fact of the 400 years enslavement upon the house of Yasha Allah, of Yahweh in particular, and including Ephraim, the northern tribes that were in South America, with concentration on Yehuda, because, you know, we told in Zechariah 12, I believe verse 7, I believe that's what it is, that Yahweh shall save the tents of Yehuda, of Yehuda, as you might say also, first. And what we are being led to transfer to you by way of knowledge through Abayah's Roach is the way, the manner, how the 400 years enslavement was done. And according to Habakkuk, we have to write the vision and make it plain. Write it on tables. Make it plain so the house of Yasha'Allah could run when they read it. All right? So now, we are faced with it, Yasha'Allah, and I encourage you, my brothers and sisters, my dear little children, the babies in the midst of us, our babies, our sons and daughters. Abba is calling all to come up. Come from the north and the south, from the west and the east, come. Come to the table and feast on his word and feast on the knowledge that is given to you right now. We say then that as the slavery, the enslavement, the 400 years enslavement as prophesied in Bereshith, in Genesis chapter 15, pronounced in the presence of Abraham, our father, pronounced by Abba Yahweh himself, directly, no filters in between. He spoke it to Abraham, who as yet did not have the son of promise. So you know this has got to be a serious word that he was speaking to Abraham that has affected the lineage of our father Abraham from then until now. But thankfully, we're getting to it. We're getting to understand the gist, the manner in which or how the operation of this prophetic word, how its elements were brought together and made manifest in history from the time of Abba, our father Abraham himself, unto us here now. So we see then that we come to the declaration of the word that in historical manifestation shows that the Levites, whom today we call the Haitians, who are the children of the ancient Maccabeans. Many brothers were, I think I can use the word shocked, when finding out that the Haitians are the children of the Maccabeans. It has been a shock to them. And I think it is a shock to Yasharites everywhere, to the house of Yahweh in particular. Now, this is something that the Edomites knew all along, especially the hierarchy, the rulers in Edom. This is something they have known all along, because under Gabriel and all the principalities of evil, they were the ones manifesting the processes to bring all this about. They were in charge of it. All right, so it's nothing new to them that I am saying here. This is something common knowledge to them and the Catholic Church hierarchy. This is common knowledge to them. You, Yasha Allah, who we might say has been behind the 8 ball, coming to, actually is a refresher for you. And it is, sorry, brother. It is, as it were, a word of knowledge, because yet being your history, you have become dispossessed of the knowledge. And therefore, for the most part, you didn't know. We give thanks to Abba Yah and his Rawak in the name of the hidden Al-Hayim, the hidden Al-Hayim that was hidden since the beginning of the world. We're talking about the word of his power. This was the hidden Al-Hayim. No man had seen Al-Hayim at any time. The only begotten of the Father, he reveals him. So, I mean, overpowered with the feeling of praise and a willingness to worship Abba Yah when we see the beauty of his word bearing fruit in our midst. But we go back to the fact that with our situation as we have now come out of the feast of Yom Kippur that is expressed in Leviticus chapter 16 as a day of atonement for Yasha Allah, that the priests ministered for at that time, or in the history of the nation of Yasha Allah, the priests, actually the high priest in specific, the high priest, you had priests and high priests. The high priest, the highest of the priests, ministered the day of Yom Kippur, as we see in Leviticus, the book of the Levites, the ancient Maccabees. Leviticus, it's a chapter concerning them, their heritage as priests. So the priests at Yom Kippur would be the one in charge of the ceremony, the ceremonial transaction involved in the slaughter offering of Yasha Allah unto the Most High Yah, with prayers of confession of sins as mediators. For this is how Abba Yah set them up in their course, to be mediators unto him concerning the sin, or sins if you will, of the children of Yasha Allah. So the priests were set up in their course to minister about approaching unto Abba Yahweh and pleading in their ministry for the safety of Yasha through the time of what's the word I need? It's a regular word of well, let me say of confessing the sins of the nation, and in this the process of receiving the forgiveness of Abba Yah, forgiveness and healing, that they may be taken across the other side of the experience of atonement. You have a process of beginning the atonement exercise, yes, and this is where the priest came in, slaughtered the lamb and so forth, did the prayers and the confession, and the asking for the forgiveness, for Abba's forgiveness and cleansing for the nation. This was their, this was their high, the high work of the priest, of the priesthood, of the Maccabean Levites. I think I said it already, but I might say it again. Many people were shocked to discover that today's Haitian, Haiti's population in the land of Haiti today, and wherever they are, across the length and breadth of the earth, they were the children, they are the children of the ancient Maccabeans. And hence, they were the nation of priests. I think that has soaked into you now. So let's continue. In the revolution for Haiti's independence, these children of the Maccabeans, in cooperation with Esau, the Levites, Esau, unto whom our forefathers made a pronounced declaration that resounds throughout history. They made this declaration in their allegiance to Satan and to Gadriel. That in the time of the crucifixion, the whole trial of the Mashiach, his trial by, get the word. I want you to get the word and let it sink in. His trial by the priests, by the priesthood. This was the one leading his trial, because, as we have shown already, there was no king in Yasha. Zedekiah, who was the last king, had been deposed and was now dead. And, practically out of mind, I guess, in a way of speaking. He was long gone. So there was no king in Yasha. Herod and the Romans had taken over the land. I want you to see these connections. And so the land and the nation of Yahweh, the three tribes, would be called Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, were under the jurisdiction of Edom in the days of Herod the king. Mashiach was born. And because the Maccabeans saw him coming, they were priests, they were astute historians and biblical scholars. And in reading the Psalms, that prefigured or foreshadowed the coming of the Malach of Yasha as being revealed by the order a priest according to the order of Melchizedek. The Maccabeans saw that, and it stirred up what might be becoming a regular word with us, stirred up envy. The envy of Gadriel that occurred in the Shamayim, when he envied the Blessed One, the Most High Yah, whom we now know as the Mashiach, the one that was hidden from all eternity. The envy of Gadriel rose up in the Maccabeans against the coming priests, whom they were chosen to prefigure, whom they were chosen to show forth, as it were, his attributes, so that when he would come, the nations would already have, an idea, a basic principle knowledge of how the priests and the priesthood ought to be conducted. This was their role. But out of the envy that Gadriel stirred up in them, they had hatred, the Maccabeans. And so what you ought to see in the historical records of the book of the Maccabees, that even and although Matthias and his sons stood up for the nation during the vacancy of the kingship, being priests, they stood to secure the lifeblood and the durability of the nation. They split. There was a split in them, in the Maccabean order, that whereas the children of Matthias consecrated themselves to the priesthood, even though they also were considering the matter of the priesthood and the fact of a priest coming after the order of Melchizedek to cut through the Levitical lines. They lost track of the prophetic viewpoint that they were only temporary priests. This was known. But they want to cut across that knowledge, that understanding that they were only temporary priests, that in the coming of Hamashiach, they were to be backed aside and re-engrafted, if you will, redistributed in the nation as priests and kings, according to, I think it's Exodus chapter 19 and verse 7, somewhere there. And there might be other declarations about it, but you have it actually again in Revelation chapter 1. I think it's verse 10 that says that the Mashiach has, this is past tense now, after he has ascended to the high priesthood, after he has ascended into his place, which has been very recent. It didn't happen when he became victorious over death and the grave and all the demonic satanic powers. No. He had to wait for the situation to occur, whereas Abba Yah was sending his 12 tribes out of regular family ordering, out of regular family relationship, They were being scattered. The 10 tribes in South America, the house of Yahweh, into hard bondage under Esau. And all of this coming on the heels of the declaration that we read in our opening statement. We have no king but Caesar. Our fathers, our forefathers, made the declaration on the behalf of all the house of Yahshua. We have no king but Caesar. So imagine that what Esau lost in the transaction of the birthright in Bereshith 23, 24, 25, and so forth, Esau cast the birthright behind him. But he has come full circle in recasting himself as the Romans and casting himself with the help, I do believe, of the split Maccabeans, catapulted Esau into kingship in Herod. And so here they were, the Edomite as king, already before the Mashiach set foot on the earth, and with the help of the Maccabeans that we today call Haitians, the kingdom under Edom, under the Edomites, under Amalek, was solidified for Esau. And Yahshua itself, our forefathers, put the stamp of approval upon it. The day of the crucifixion of Hamashiach, when they said, as our opening scripture implies, that our forefather said, away with him, the Father's beloved, the Mashiach, away with him and crucify him, impale him. Pilate said, no, but you mean, shall I crucify your king, your Malach? And they said, we have no king but Caesar, Edomite. Our forefathers declared it in bold language, written here in the scriptures. So today, we wonder of how we came to be in the condition we're in. Under Edom, we've been wondering and, really frustrated about the situation that we find ourselves in. Our forefathers called it down upon us through the priesthood. I want you to see how dangerous this priesthood has been to us. This priesthood in the time of the crucifixion of Mashiach, the Levitical priesthood, I might add, in cooperation with Dan, tribe of Dan. This priesthood of Levi was adamant in proclaiming in the hearing of Pilate the Edomite, we have no king but Caesar. And let me tell you, that was music. That was music in the ears of the Edomites, of the Amalekites, of Edom in general, that we have no king but Caesar. Can you imagine what tears of I'll use the Edomite word. What tears of joy, what exuberance and overriding gladness, pride is brought to them that having been ousted, having been put off from the birthright that they turned their backs on in the early days, they were now in possession of the prize of what the birthright had in store for the one that possessed it. I want you to look at it now, brethren, and see the power, see the fulfillment of these matters and what part we or our forefathers have executed in bringing all of this to pass, to fruition, because our forefathers rebelled against the Most High Yahweh. And then you have them saying, away with the Mashiach, crucify him. We ain't got no king but Caesar, the Edomite. And this is where today's present Edomite haughtiness is pinned down. They remember the declaration that Yasha'Allah made in the presence of Pilate, the Edomite governor, as I will assume that Herod was at the trial as well. Herod, who's the king. And Yasha'Allah made this declaration before them. I want you to see it, Yasha'Allah. Feel it. That Yasha'Allah, our forefathers of Yahweh, of the house of Judah, made this declaration in the presence of this most auspicious Edomite, like the word gets away, it's gone away from me, but in the presence of the power players of Edom in our land. He made the declaration, we got no king but Caesar. Music. Da, 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 da. Music to the ears of Pilate and Herod that Yasha'Allah now proclaims Edom as king, as Malach, even above the father's Malach that he gave to us. And so, when we really look at it now, bringing it into what we call modern times, you have here the picture and the revelation that complies with the Levitical misdirection of the priesthood, through envy of the devil, as the wisdom of Solomon chapter 2, 23 and 24 expresses to us, that the Levites fell prey to this envy and were envious of the priesthood of the Mashiach, and set about, from way back there, set about to disrupt and destroy the knowledge of the priesthood and the knowledge of the coming priest, Abba Yahweh's priest, that would reign after the order of Melchizedek and after the power of an endless life not as the Levitical priesthood officiated, because they died. They operated or officiated by course. There was a number of them chosen as high priests. You had priests and high priests, yes. So a number of them being chosen as high priests. When one died, another one slipped right in place to carry on the tradition of the high priesthood. But they knew altogether that this was a temporary situation set up in the Torah, in the law, by the Most High Yah. This was common knowledge to them. And yet, when the psalmist, our forefather David, through the set apart Ruah, revealed that the Mashiach is coming after the order of Melchizedek. And why does he have to come in this manner? Because the Levites conceived in their heart that they were going to hold on to this priesthood. They wanted to add kingship to this priesthood now because they see the picture in the Psalms that represented Abba's coming priest, high priest. And instead of willingly stepping aside and accepting the transition sends under the Mashiach, all Yasha'Allah was to become a kingdom of kings and priests. According to Exodus chapter, 19 and 7, I believe it is, and in the Psalms itself, and introduced in Hebrew or in the book of Hebrews, that the Mashiach would be coming after the order of Melchizedek, because the Father already knew that the original Levites chosen to give a clear picture, a clear visual in the manner of life that they would have lived, would have expressed the idea, the knowledge of who Abba Yahweh's priest or high priest would be, and the manner of his priesthood. And so Abba Yahweh instituted the order of Melchizedek to bypass the controversy. And for all this, the Levites were envious and in anger, determined to go at cross purpose with Abba Yah's order and his will. Therefore, you had the Maccabeans conniving, the faction of them that broke off from the other ones, and they were in the shadows, conniving and putting the processes together to thwart the Most High Yahweh's plan to set up the Mashiach's high priesthood that would continue, as Hebrews say, after the order of an endless life. There would not have to be another priest that come after him. Or in fact, he would not be dying. He would not become dead and unable to be an officiating power and an officiating authority on the behalf of Abba's household. The Levites, the Maccabeans, that section of them went at cross purpose with the declaration of Psalm 110, that the Mashiach's priesthood would consist of the officiating principle of an endless life. Once you see it, Yasha Allah. So all this is going on, this priesthood conniving, and this march toward the high priesthood of the Mashiach is now set in motion in true form with the Mashiach's birth, and now coming to the point of his crucifixion, that everything is hinged on. And the priests, you find them in the scriptures here, from Matthew down to Yochanan, you find them pushing the people, the masses of the people, and telling them what to request concerning the destruction of the Mashiach. They're pushing the people and telling them what to say, what to ask for to secure the death of the Mashiach. This was Levi. We never had any teaching on it, Yasha Allah, in my lifetime. I'm not the oldest person alive. But I haven't heard it, nothing said of it in my lifetime. I have read I guess to say almost nothing of it in terms of the way Abba Yah has me to express it now. The view of the coming Levitical priesthood takeover has been expressed in a number of writings that I've come in contact with over the years, from my early years, from my young days. But they weren't openly expressing the idea of the transaction of this priesthood takeover, this priesthood expression. It was hidden and it was covered up. As I continued to mature and grew, the Spirit of the Most High has helped me to slowly put it together. Until now, he has made the whole picture clear to me, that what I was reading about, as it was expressed in hiddenness, was this same matter of the hatred and the envy of the Levitical priesthood against the Mashiach. So, in the process of securing the crucifixion of the Mashiach, Levi was right at hand as the chief priest, or high priest, if you will. I believe both of those words bear the same power and authority. Chief priest, high priest. These were Levites that were clamoring for the death, for the capital punishment of the Mashiach. Levi, who we know today as the Haitians, who in the revolution for Haiti's independence backtracked on the Most High, Abba Yah, and came together with Esau, who secured a confession from the house of Yahweh at the death of the Mashiach, that we have no king but Caesar the Edomite. This is our sin that we got to confess, Yasha Allah, at this time. It is the sin that we are responsible for, and Yasha Allah, directly under the Levitical priesthood. So Levi got away with that atrocity, doing that high profile crime of contributing, demanding the death of the Mashiach, undercover and secret. for his sovereign, the Edomite. He done it in secret. And for all these years, I mean, practically thousands of years now, Esau done this crime and it has not been discovered. But Abiyah has it all. As Mother Shirley Caesar would say. That's the Caesar name again. I don't know if she wants to change it. But Mother Shirley Caesar would say, Abiyah has it all in control. And so he brings it to us now to make us see clearly that Levi was the high priest, chief priest, whose hand was at work. I mean, openly at work. But for us who live today, we never made the connection in our study of the scriptures. We never made the historical connection that it was our same present-day Levites as children of the Maccabees who conspired against the Mashiach way back there. High crime, a high-profile crime that was hidden, kept under the rug, as we say. So Esau did that crime, the highest crime in the records of historical recordings. Levi made, I believe I could say, the greatest contribution to the crucifixion and the death of the Mashiach. I'm throwing it in your face directly today. This is what Levi did as the chief priest, the high priest in Yasha'Allah, in the land, in the court of Pilate. He got no king but Caesar, the Edomite. Esau came full circle from being thrust out of inclusion in the birthright. And Levi put it in his hand. I mean, Yasha'Allah in general, but Levi, as the priest, was the leader who, I guess we could say, governed the minds of the people. Everybody was looking to him for guidance and in the understanding of the things of the Most High. And this is how Levi led them in the time of the crucifixion. Levi was behind them, telling them, say we have no king but Caesar. It was Levi, the people of, as we today call the Haitians, children of the Maccabees, despicable scums against the Most High, who gave them the priesthood to teach them the manner of priesthood covering that Hamashiach would offer to the children of Yasha'Allah. And in turn, return them, the Levites, the Maccabean children, return them into the national order as priests, as regular. All of us would be priests under Mashiach. And kings, priests, kings, priests, under the Mashiach. The Mashiach would be the high priest. You see how that is? And Levi was envious against that from that time until today. And now he has himself poised to take his proclamation. And that's not the word I really want. I need another word. Take his you probably could fill it in for me. But indeed, take his vision, what he has determined in his heart, in the revolution. In fact, at the time of the crucifixion, it was in his heart. To put himself in kingship and priesthood. And the Most High didn't allow him to achieve it. He has tried in our day, in our, what we call modern time, to achieve it based on our lack of knowledge of what he was doing. And even as he transgressed in the blood oath covenant, the Catholic Church, and Esau, we still did not apprehend him, what his motives were, as to what his motive is, because he has never changed. Levi. So he became emboldened in his futuristic undertakings in the quest of thwarting the orders of the Most High in the matter of priesthood. And in fact, the high priesthood that was belonging to the Mashiach. He had it in his heart from way back there, and we never considered it. The prophecy was there, is here, has been here all the while. We never saw it. All things in the timing and the order of the Most High. Yeah. He now brings it out for us to see that if we could know what is the depth of our omission to his purposes, or mission to adherence to his purpose, his purposes, and a willingness to obey and to bring ourselves in line to what he does or intends to do, so that as dear children of Abba Yah, we may also come into the procession of children of his, or into the procession of the ministers of his grace, whereby he allows us to be co-laborers together with him, with Mashiach. We were called to be co-laborers together with him. And so you can very well see now that, or why we have had this problem in the smooth transference that was to take place in the Shamayim and here upon earth, if you will. Because in my view, we were negligent in our to use a regular word, handling, in our duties of showing forth the praises of the Most High Yahweh in such an auspicious occasion as the Mashiach coming into the high priesthood, his high priesthood, whereby in that transaction, all the rest of us, the men of Yasharahla, become kings and priests under him, under the Mashiach, but himself as priest over his own house, as Hebrews tells us. Yasharahla, I am your brother, and charging us with neglect to give the honor and esteem to the Mashiach in this past Yom Kippur, which was at the same time the high day of atonement that fulfill Daniel 8 and 14 unto 2,300 days. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. You got it now, Yasha Allah? You should have it by now. We were neglectful and disrespectful unto the Most High Yah and unto our Mashiach by demoting his kingship, his priesthood, whereas Abba Yah sent him to be our king, to fight our battles, and as king, to be our healer, to bring forgiveness and the cleansing that is applied by his own blood. By his own blood, he's entered into the most holy place, the most set apart place. In the day of the 2,300-day prophecy, Yom Kippur, that passed us by, and we let it slip because of our situation, our position of lockdown under Levi, who was very careful to pay attention to all these matters. These were under Levi's orchestration. He orchestrated the death of the Mashiach. Levi did as the priest. Go back and read the story. And now in this, what we call our modern time, orchestrating to eclipse the authority and position of the Mashiach, entering into the most set apart place to ministrate on our behalf before the Father and to preside over the scapegoat, confess the sins upon him, send him to the wilderness, and secure our freedom. Yasha Allah, I trust then that we have gotten a revelation of the mystery. You know, in Revelation chapter 10, I believe it's verse 7, it says that, but in the day of the voice of the seventh Malachim, when he shall begin to make some noise, I'm kind of paraphrasing, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of Elohim shall be finished. We're getting some view into the mystery today, Yasha Allah, and we give thanks to the Most High Yahweh, and we give thanks to the exaltation of our Mashiach as our never dying high priest, whereby we may come boldly to the throne to receive grace, mercy, to help us in our time of need. Most High bless you and keep you, Yasha Allah. Cause his face to shine upon you and give you shalom. Lift the light of his countenance upon you. Yes, give you shalom for now and forever. So let it be.